I'm here with Rei Inamoto, who is the Chief Creative Officer of AKQA, to talk about the future of advertising. What is the future of advertising?
The future of advertising isn't advertising.
It's not advertising. Okay, if it's not advertising, what is it?
Well, as I was talking at the presentation, I don't claim to know all the answers, but I have certain suggestions and certain ideas that we could try moving forward. Instead of TV, print, radio, even digital as advertising vehicle, I think we should be looking at software much more seriously, and the marketers and agencies should be acting like and thinking like software developers moving forward. And I think software can become marketing of the 21st century.
So does this mean that we all have to create apps?
I think if you just say create apps, I think that sort of diminishes the importance of the power of technology.
Okay, what is the meaning? What do you mean by software then?
Software is a system that allows a certain thing to happen. So, for instance, just to use Instagram. I mean, it is an app, but it's a system that allows one to share photos in a simple and beautiful way. So it just happens to be an app, but it doesn't have to be an app. It could be something that you do on a desktop, that you do, in a store, that you do, outside. So it's the thought of that connection and providing that system that software allows. I think is a big opportunity.
So you're engaging with people on a much deeper level than me watching your TV ad.
Yeah, it's not just me telling you, hey, a point of view or my story or whatever, but providing an opportunity for you to do something, and then that is a value, that is something that you do, and then you get a pleasure out of it, you get some kind of satisfaction out of it, you get to do something with it. That I think is much more
okay. So
sort of meaningful.
Think like software developers provide things that are software, almost services. Okay,
provide things that solve problems.
Okay,
and then provide value.
Okay,
yeah.
What other ways is the future?
Other ways, I think instead of media as media, I think product has to start becoming media. So things like Nike Fuel Band, that was really a marketing idea initially, but marketing is kind of baked into products, right? The product itself, and the product is the media, as opposed to creating or buying media placements to advertise that product.
So I'm walking around as a living.
That's right.
a living, breathing.
That's right.
Fuel Band ad
with just a click of a button. The fact that you're using the product can be broadcast to everybody in your social network, and this is media.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
Other ways that the future of advertising isn't advertising, from storytelling to behavior. So
which is very interesting, because a lot of people at the spikes here are talking about storytelling. You're saying no.
No. So advertisers love to tell stories. Advertising creatives, advertising strategists, we love to tell stories. But my point of view, and again, this is just my point of view, that people don't have to agree with me, but if you have money and energy to create or make up a story to tell, why don't you invest that time and energy to behave a certain way, to behave in a way that serves a purpose for their consumers and customers? That becomes a much more convincing quote-unquote story than coming up with sort of a fictional story to tell. So,
for example,
one of the examples that I was using was Curators of Sweden, which is a Twitter program, a Twitter quote-unquote campaign that the country of Sweden did. And when there was a controversy about that program,
well, basically, they had 1 week. Any citizen of Sweden can be the tweeter.
Yeah. Yeah,
and they had a controversy with one of the tweeters.
Yeah, one of the tweeters, she started to say things that were not really appropriate and that were very controversial and very, sort of racially inappropriate. What the government or the Tourism Commission didn't do was that they didn't take away the Twitter account from her and then moving on to somebody else. They kept it with her, let her finish, the whole week. And then when they were being attacked by other countries and other media outlets, hey, why don't you stop this program? They said, freedom of speech. freedom of speech is something that we value, something that we feel proud of, and that kind of behavior said so much about Sweden than Sweden doing an ad campaign that said, "Hey, freedom of speech."
There was an actual demonstration of that.
Of that story.
Okay.
So instead of telling the story, behaving the story.
Okay. Any other aspects?
Other
of future
aspects.
advertising?
So from campaigns to franchises. So again, we in this industry, we like to create campaigns, and that's almost an assumption that we have. The job of an agency is to create campaigns, but instead of doing that, the advertisers and agencies should start to think about ways of building a franchise or program that they can own, and that can become a business or that can become a platform that they can own, not just as a communication platform, but an engagement platform for different consumers to.
So again, an example would be.
One example from a brand is. Small Business Saturday that American Express did in the US, and essentially this is a program that they do every year and that they can own, and it's essentially encouraging people. And this particular Saturday is the Saturday after the Thanksgiving weekend in the States. And American Express is encouraging people to shop local at small businesses on that particular Saturday, right? To help their local business, the local community, and it's showing the support that American Express provides to small businesses, and then the small businesses sort of cater the small community, and then the people in the community feel like that they can invest in their own community, so that it's sort of a win-win situation. That's a franchise that American Express now owns, and they can repeat it year after.
So they can almost make it into a movement, or they can go many different directions with that moving forward.
Exactly. And then the last example or the proof, in my opinion, that the future of advertising isn't advertising, is this notion or the shift that's happening from 360 to 365.
So 360 being that we can surround somebody with messages through all the different elements of marketing.
We've been too obsessed with surrounding and almost trapping the consumers with this message, and then 360 degrees. It's almost like a prison that we're trying to create. Prison of media, prison of message. These consumers, they're getting bombarded with like literally 1,000 messages a day. I mean, it's almost a crime to surround them with 360 degrees of communication. So instead, what I advocate is that, we should create something that's meaningful, useful, that's valuable, that builds 365 days of connection between brands and consumers.
So for example,
this is something that we've done, that AKQ have done. So it's not really a self-promotional thing, but we created something called a training club, Nike Training Club. And the vision before we started it was, how can Nike become the world's best trainer for every single woman in the world? That was sort of the premise. For
every single
women in the world. And then what we wanted to do was to create the world's biggest training club. Now, when you're trying to create the biggest world training club, if you physically create a club, that's quite limiting and expensive and all that kind of stuff. Well, what we decided to do was to provide that training club through a mobile phone, and they can download this program, and then it feeds training programs on a daily basis that you can sign up for, say, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then they would create a training program for you, and then you can keep using, and it sort of progresses as you move forward. So that's an example of 365 as opposed to 360.
So it's iterating and building a community and growing it forward.
Yeah, and then building that connection.
And then finally, you also spoke a little bit about if people had obeyed these tenets, you might have, instead of Kodak going bust, you'd have Kodak who's inventing Instagram.
Yeah, so the analogy that I was using earlier was that, Instagram, massively successful app, but I mean, it's 20 million users, 30 million users without investing a single dollar in advertising. The analogy that I was using to sort of talk about, how advertisers spend money on advertising versus software is that it's a difference between renting versus buying a home. If you rent, you pay and it's gone. If you buy, the mortgage that you pay, even if it's exactly the same monthly payment that you're making, you're building equity, building an equity with what you build. So that's what I think more advertisers and brands and agencies should
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the future of advertising is not advertising.
That's my conviction.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.